Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, we're going to start over then. Okay. I'll get back to Zoom here. We're having a little technical difficulty this morning, so now we're going to get started. So, welcome to Make Yourself Resilient to Stress in 6 Simple Steps. So I'm Dr. Stephen Hall with the 7 Tools, and I'm presenting this webinar, but Grace is here monitoring the chat box in case you have any questions. So we're live, but there is a 20-second lag between what I say and what you hear. So I'm going to be living in the future, and Grace will be responding to you in real time. So I'm very excited that you're here, and thank you so much for giving yourself this webinar. But I'm even more excited to get this information out to you because it turns out that stress causes or contributes to up to 90% of doctors' visits in the US. So if you are at all interested in getting or staying healthy, and I bet you are, diet, exercise, supplements, and meditation are important, but they're not enough because you can stress right through the benefits of all those things. And so you also need a way to unplug stress from your body so that you can deal with the inevitable issues that come up in your life, and then they don't make you sick. So that's what we're going to do today. So I want to show you just such a way to unplug from stress. And by being here, you are now taking very positive steps to prevent the conditions that make so many of us sick. So if you find this information helpful, do your friends and loved ones a favor. So please tell them about this webinar. So who do you know that would benefit from being less stressed? So this time is for you. So please take a moment to turn off your cell phone, put up the do not disturb sign, and close your door because you deserve really good attention and care, and you can give that to yourself for the next hour. And I just want to let you know that you are in the right place, especially if you relate to any of these following cases. So if there are times when you are feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, or don't know how you're going to get through the rest of the day, yeah, we're having some technical difficulties, and turns out where I am working, just one second. Okay. So, just one second. Where I came to do this, there was no internet this morning, and there normally is. And so that's what's been causing the problem. And I think I just got internet here. So okay, so just one second. So let's.
Hey, so I just thought while this is Grace, while Dad's figuring out internet and getting his slide deck back up on his computer, if you want to let us know who you are, and you can just chat in the chat box and let us know where you're coming in from, your name if you want to share it, what's bringing you to this webinar. We'd love to know who's here with us today. We have some added complications of that Dad is in Washington State and I am in Georgia. So we are co-running this webinar in a bi-coastal fashion, which is adding to some technical complications.
Yeah. So Grace, could you give me the meeting ID again?
Yeah, I'll send it to you in a text.
Okay, thanks. I think I'm ready once I get into your meeting.
Okay. I was going to say it wouldn't be 2020 if everything just worked out well, right? There have to be complications.
Maybe we should have waited a couple weeks to do this. Okay. Join.
We really appreciate your patience with us as we get this all sorted out.
Okay.
All right.
Host lets me in. Okay, and then I'm going to share my screen.
Okay. So, do you have your?
You have to enable me to share screen.
Okay, hang on. All of the things. Okay, try again.
No, it's not doing anything. Okay, try it again. Share screen. Oh, it says host is disabled.
All right, try one more time.
Okay.
A behind the scenes look. And don't worry if this is feeling really boring. It's about to get more interesting.
Yeah, we're getting there.
We'll try to edit this part out so you don't have to listen to this part again. All right. Seems like we're in, guys.
Okay.
I think you can hang your phone up.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
All right. So now even the microphone's working. Okay, so let's start over. I'm sure you've probably heard this already. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So welcome to Make Yourself Impervious to Stress in 6 Simple Steps. So I'm Dr. Stephen Hall with the 7 Tools, and I'm here with Grace Porter, and she's running the chat room while I'm running the webinar. So there's actually a 20-second lag between what I say and what you hear. So I'm going to be living in the future, and Grace will be responding to you in the chat box in real time. So I'm really excited that you're here because this information is so important. And that's because stress causes or contributes to up to 90% of doctor's visits in the United States. So if you're at all interested in getting or staying healthy, and I bet you are, that diet, exercise, supplements, and meditation, they're important, but they're not enough because you can stress right through the benefits of all those things. You also need a way to unplug stress from your body so you can deal with the inevitable issues that come up in your life and they don't make you sick. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you just such a way to unplug from stress. So by being here, you are now taking very positive steps to prevent the conditions that make so many of us sick. So if you find this information helpful, now do your friends and loved ones a favor and please tell them about this webinar. So this time is for you. So please take a moment to turn off your cell phone, put up the do not disturb sign, and close your door because you deserve really good attention and care, and you can give that to yourself for this next hour. And I just want to affirm that you're in the right place, especially if you relate to any of these situations. So when there are times when you're feeling frustrated or overwhelmed, or you don't know how you're just going to get through the day, or maybe there's times when you feel trapped or out of control, hopeless, just like a cog in the machine. Or maybe there's times when you're so tired, even the thought of getting ready for bed feels like too much. I know this sure happened to me a lot when our kids were little. Or maybe there's times when you start questioning the choices that you've made, the direction of your life, or what's going on in your relationships. And then, of course, there's the times when the things you've thought were true for years get turned on their heads, just like this year. So think about how you respond to those times now. So just take a moment and sense into your body. How do those times make you feel? And now think about how you wished you could respond to those times. So you can't get away from potential stressors these days, but you don't have to let these things stress you out or make you sick or even possibly shorten your life. There is help. So we're going to show you in 6 simple steps how to build your resilience and adjust your perspective so that your stressors don't get you down and don't get down into your body. So when you put the information you're about to hear into practice, you're going to revolutionize your life, because with it, you can be more comfortable and productive. You could live motivated by love rather than by fear. And you could avoid most of these stress related illnesses that plague our society right now. And so when you make your own life better, you're actually making life better for all of us. So, as a great big thank you for giving yourself this webinar, please stay tuned at the end for a special free bonus. So, what you're going to learn today is why people are, let's see, sorry. You're going to learn how to tell when you're stressed, because believe it or not, many people don't even know when they've crossed that threshold into stress. And perhaps that's because being so busy and spread thin has become such commonplace nowadays. And then we're going to tell you why you need to do something real and effective to protect yourself from stress if you want to stay healthy and regain your health. So we're going to talk about ideas such as, well, why even worry about stress, or why do anything about it? Because when you understand the power that stress has to affect you, you're going to see why it's so important to do something real about it. And then we're going to talk about why what most people do to relax from stress doesn't save them from stress-related diseases. And we're going to talk about a revolutionary new way to transform stress. And this way is based upon integrative medicine principles and years of clinical practice, so that you don't even get stressed in the first place. But first, I want to tell you 3 little secrets. So stressors may be inevitable, but stress is not. So many of our patients and clients come in believing that stress is an inescapable part of life nowadays, and that they have resigned themselves to just having to live with it. No, please don't do that, because you will get sick if you're not already. So we want to show you how to prevent stress before it happens, or get yourself out of it if you already are in it. So the second is, you are always in control, at least where it counts, because you have an unconquerable soul. And we're going to show you how to stay in your power even when find yourself in these powerless situations. And the third little secret is, stress management doesn't actually save you, because whatever you're doing to relax at the end of a stressful day is not going to protect you from what that stress has been doing to you all day up until that point. So preventing stress in the first place is your best bet. And we're going to show you how. So Grace and I have found a way to not just treat stress, but prevent it in the first place. So I'd like to give you a little of the backstory about how we found this revolutionary way to make you impervious to stress and build your resilience. So around age 12, I started daydreaming about being a doctor because I believe that doctors help people live better lives, and that's what I wanted to do. So that's me on the bottom there. And when I started medical school, I thought there was just one medicine, and they either already had good answers or were hot on the trail of good answers with the research. But very early in my training, I started meeting people for whom the conventional medical approach didn't help. There had to be some way to help them because I never wanted to say to a patient, well, you're just going to have to learn to live with it. There's nothing more I can do. And so I started looking into what other healing traditions had to offer. I studied nutrition, herbs, psychology, clinical hypnosis, osteopathic manipulation, and functional medicine. I also looked into naturopathy, homeopathy, chiropractic, Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and Native American healing traditions. And then I integrated as much as I could into my family practice. And one of the most influential integrative treatments I learned was craniosacral therapy, because with it, I'm able to treat people on all levels of their being simultaneously. So I can treat issues in their physical body, in their energy, the mind, beliefs, and even help people start to access their own inner knowing. So over the years of watching people's inner knowing functioning as their personal health coach, I saw a pattern to how it worked. And I call that pattern the 7 tools of healing. So helping people listen to their own inner knowing and learn and live these 7 tools has become an important part of my work now. And then I came across Ken Wilber's work on the integral worldview, which is a wonderful way to take information from all kinds of different disciplines and fit it all together into one seamless framework that makes really good sense. So I used his ideas to put together all that I'd been learning about health and healing and human disease and suffering into one seamless medicine that I call integral medicine. Since so many of the illnesses we experience are related to or at least influenced by stress, I wanted to come up with a way to help my patients prevent stress. I was not content only to treat the diseases that stress caused. So, the way to make yourself resilient to stress and keep the effects of stressors out of your body that we're going to be learning about today came about by using integral medicine principles and the 7 tools of healing to solve the problem of stress. So, not only has this kind of information helped many of my patients, but it has also really helped me because I used to be a master at getting myself all tied up in knots inside, and that's quite literally. Because my first significant stress related illness hit me when I was in college. But like most people, I didn't recognize it as such at the time. So I was at the University of Utah. I was double majoring. I had just returned from a backpacking trip in southern Utah. I was running on only a couple of hours of sleep that night before when my girlfriend of 3 years sat me down and told me she wanted to break up. So almost immediately, I got stomach cramps and diarrhea. And I thought, well, I just picked up Giardia while backpacking. But in hindsight, that was the start of a many-year relationship with stress-related digestive problems. I also had other run-ins with stress. So my first practice out of residency was as the only doctor in a small town in rural Maine. And I also had 2 young children by then and was taking care of a 250-acre farm. So one afternoon, I had a disagreement with the local hospital administrator over some contract issues. I hung up the phone, stood up out of my chair, and my back just seized up in knots. So at the time, again, I wrote it off as, well, I'm just come from the work of putting up 14 cords of wood. But my back has been one of my body's most persistent attention getting devices ever since then. And in addition to my aching back, and again, I didn't recognize it as a stress symptom at the time, but my mind would get going thinking about things over and over. And I had a hard time getting it to stop, if any of you can relate to that. So I know what work stress is. I know what family stress is. And I know what a monkey mind is like. And I know the grouchiness, the mood swings, the feeling trapped, hopeless, overwhelmed. And I tried to live with it. I tried to rationalize it away. So obviously, rationalizing and minimizing and just trying to adapt to my issues didn't solve anything. So over the years, my digestion and back just got worse and worse. And then I started getting sensitive to foods and experiencing arthritis in multiple joints. And I wasn't alone because everywhere I looked in all of that studying that I was doing, and this was back in the 80s and 90s, mind you, stress kept popping up as a significant contributor to disease and suffering. Like I said, diet is important, so is exercise. But if you stay stressed, diet, exercise, meditation, yoga, supplements, and all those sorts of things will not save you. So at this point, I started getting worried about myself. So this is what I had on my plate. I was a young doctor trying to keep up on all of conventional medicine while learning all of these new ideas. I was moving across the country, starting new practices, remodeling a house, and raising a family. So I was the poster child for being spread too thin. I was learning that I was really learning what being all stressed out eventually led to, and I certainly didn't want to keep going down that path. So this is a picture of us. I had 3 kids by then at my grandma's 100th birthday. So I have some long living genes in my family, and I wanted to live in a way to let them do their thing. And it wasn't like I didn't have ways to cope or recover enough to keep going. I had great outlets. I have a loving, supportive family. And then I go into nature whenever I need to recharge, get insights or inspiration. But managing stress after the fact doesn't keep it from making you sick. The pressures kept mounting and I got more and more inflamed. Well, then it hit me that I and everybody I knew needed a better answer for stress. We needed a way to prevent stress, to keep from getting stressed in the first place. All the relaxation techniques might make you feel better for a time, but they weren't preventing the stress related diseases in me or in my patients. So I had been learning all these different ideas about healing and how to come up with better answers for my patients' other health problems. So I wondered, well, what would happen if I applied that process to stress? I had learned all the pieces to the puzzle over the years, and I just needed to use the integral worldview to put them together in the right way. So I put together what I'd learned, and I started teaching it to my patients, both in the office and in a class I called Taming the Bear, Taking the Bite Out of Stress. And my daughter Grace took the class after college when she was experiencing the effects of stress herself. And that class helped her make drastic life changes, including making the decision to go back to school and become a psychotherapist. And she's now been teaching her clients this approach to stress for several years. So here's what some past students have said about our class. So we're using initials instead of names to protect people's privacy. So I am now able to recognize my body's signals that alert me to my feelings and take care of myself before I respond out of fear. I can be present to criticism, anger, feelings of stress coming from others directed at me, and have compassion for myself. Be present to what is happening inside of me. Steve, I want to be clear in saying I have received from this class a set of tools that has clarified and awakened me. I am grateful to have had the space and time to explore myself, be inspired, and rejuvenated. And SK has used what they learned in this class in their own life and also with their sphere of influence as a mental health professional. Grace helped me stop fighting my own thoughts and feelings and practice actively accepting them and forgiving myself. I hadn't realized how much I was resisting and rejecting my own internal voice. I know I've been there. So when I remember to practice the tools, I feel calmer and more centered. And even when I fall back into those old patterns, I feel less distressed, understanding that there are steps I can actively take to feel better. Before taming the bear, I felt that my adversarial relationship with stress was causing me to avoid opportunities for deeper personal relationships and full enjoyment of my career. I've tried several paths to changing this, including counseling and meditation. The integration of the 7 tools into these practices gives both a powerful structure and process to handling my stress. I have been able to apply this technique on my own and continue to develop new insights, which allow me to let go of these painful things from my past. So notice what this person said in their testimonial. So when they integrated the 7 tools into the counseling and meditation they were already doing, those things became more helpful. And we've seen this over and over and over, that the 7 tools can help you get more benefit out of what you are already doing to take care of yourself. So what are some of the things that are currently causing you stress? So please take a moment now to type in your dialog box some of the issues in your life that you find most stressful. Any of you dealing with aging parents or working moms and obviously having kids, homeschooling. Yeah, so just think about some of the things in life that make you stressed right now. So now that we've identified the problem, we're going to jump into talking about the solution. So here's how to make yourself resilient to stress. There are a few steps involved in how we came up with this process. So please stay with me, take notes, and ask questions if you need to. Because if the answers to stress were a soundbite, we'd all already be stress free. But as it is, not very many people have it all worked out yet. But as you're going to see and find out, that this approach makes perfect sense, though, once you see it. So first, let's clarify a few basic concepts. So when we say stressor, we mean an experience that puts strain on your system, either physically, emotionally, or both. So your stress reflex gets triggered anytime you perceive yourself to be threatened, overwhelmed, or spread too thin. Now, if a stressor or the sum total of stressors that you are experiencing exceeds your ability to compensate or adapt to them, then changes happen in your mind and body that put you at risk for physical and mental illness. This is stress. So, innumerable studies over the past few decades have repeatedly shown that we cannot stay stressed and stay healthy at the same time. We're just not wired for it. So, some people are trying to focus on the brighter side of the current stress epidemic by promoting this idea that some stress is good. Now, we can see that some potential stressors may have beneficial consequences, like the challenge of competition inspiring the athlete, for example. But by definition, unless you really like getting sick, there's no such thing as good stress. And one person's stress is another person's recreation. So experiences that totally freak out one person may seem routine or even enjoyable to someone else. So now I'd like to walk you through the reasoning that led to the development of these 6 simple steps to make yourself impervious to stress, because I found that understanding where these ideas came from makes it easier for you to remember and practice them. So let's start with the question, so what's the difference between those two people, that where one sees the experience as stress and one sees the experience as recreation? What's the difference between those two people? Well, right, it's how they look at the world. So Epictetus said, "You are perturbed more by the perception of the thing than by the thing itself." So for the majority of what you have to deal with in your life, maybe excluding major trauma and such, you are personally affected more by your perception of the experience than by the experience itself. And this idea was understood way back in ancient Greece. So, what determines how you perceive your experiences? Well, that your worldview. So, your worldview functions like this rack of lenses in your psyche that you peer through to see the world. So, let's say, for example, you and a friend go watch the same movie. So, the same kinds of photons are going into your eyes, and the same kinds of sound waves are vibrating your eardrums. So, you're getting the same kind of sensory input. Yet, you and your friend have a completely different experience of the movie. Some lines that had deep meaning for you, your friend might not even have heard. So, this happens because you each have your own unique lenses that shape everything you see, hear, feel, taste, touch, and think. If your worldview changes, how you experience your life changes. So, this is key. So, I'm going to repeat it. As your worldview changes, how you think, feel, and respond to your experiences change. So this brings up an interesting question, because I kind of like philosophy as well. So the question is, what is reality? We often think that reality is outside of ourselves and that it's objective. But in reality, all you can know of it is your own unique perception of it. So your worldview determines what you perceive to be real. You experience what is significant to you. This is why things feel so differently to different people. Applying these concepts to stress, when it comes to experiencing stressors, what you see, think, and believe determines how much those stressors affect your system. So the next logical question might be something like, can you change your worldview in such a way that you can stay healthy in the face of your experiences? So, in other words, how much control do you have over how you see the world? And how can you exercise that control? So, when I got this far in my reasoning, I started looking at this thing that we call worldview. Where does it come from? What shapes it? And most importantly, what about it can we consciously choose? So I've found that lots of parts of your life and who you are go into making up your worldview. Let's just look at a few of them. So no doubt genetics plays a big role, especially the genetics that make you a human as opposed to some other life form, but also whether or not you're male or female, tall or short, blonde or brunette, and how you're disposed to look at things, either from genetics, intrauterine experience, or who knows, maybe even what you brought into this life has a big effect on your worldview. The culture that you grow up in has a huge influence, and it's one that you might not even be aware of. And lots of evidence points to the idea that language you speak actually shapes how your brain works. And obviously, how you were parented and the family values that were instilled in you are in there working away. And one might argue that helping you develop a healthy and robust worldview is one of the most important reasons for education. Everything you experience and that you've already experienced contributes to your worldview. So basically, your worldview is just this big composite of everything going on in your life. So at this point, this worldview thing looked pretty complicated. If some of those influences are making your life look stressful to you, how do you find which ones they are and change them? So one of my professors used to say that a job that is hard by the yard is a cinch by the inch. So when problems get overly complex, he taught me to look for simplifying principles. So I see that when you have an experience, so let's say when you were 5 years old, it's not the experience itself that sticks with you and continues to influence your perceptions. It's the conclusions that you drew from going through that experience that does that. So every influence from every component of your worldview can be boiled down to your beliefs. So in order to change your worldview, you need to be able to change your beliefs. So that makes it feel a little bit simpler, doesn't it? So let's summarize where we've come so far. So you can't stay stressed and stay healthy at the same time. And stress happens when the demands of your life exceed your ability to adapt and compensate. In other words, when your stress bucket gets full. So this happens automatically or biologically if you spend too much time in the stress physiology. And as far as your body is concerned, too much time means about 3 weeks. So if you have had more than 3 weeks of stress, you are at risk for stress-related health issues. And whether or not your stress reflex gets triggers dependent upon how you look at your experience. And how you look at something is determined by your worldview. And your worldview is the sum total of all your beliefs. And to make yourself impervious or resilient to life's stressors, you need to be able to change your beliefs in specific ways. So at this point, I started to explore beliefs more deeply. What are they even? And how do they form? And how do you even know what you believe? Since it's clear that we form many of our beliefs when we're quite young. And most importantly, how do you remove the old beliefs and replace them with beliefs that are more aligned with higher truth?
So I saw that beliefs are stable thought patterns, and once they form, can stay in your mind for decades. So to really understand how beliefs work, we also need to understand how your mind works. So are you ready for another little side trip on our road to resilience? So here's a brief primer on the relevant qualities of your mind. First, you only have one mind, but we divide it into two parts to talk about how it works. You have your conscious mind, which is that part that you are aware of, and then your unconscious mind, which is everything else. So luckily, the study of clinical hypnosis taught me a lot about the conscious, the unconscious, and how they interact with each other. And more research is showing just how important the unconscious mind is in order for us to live a rewarding and fulfilling life. Excuse me. So if you are not aware of what it is doing, but your unconscious mind is constantly at work. It runs your body, like your digestion, for example, your skin temperature, your sodium and potassium levels, and everything else that happens naturally. So if you had to consciously think about each little thing your body is doing in each moment, or consciously sort through all the data your five senses are picking up, your conscious mind would be overwhelmed and you wouldn't be able to function. So the unconscious mind is so important that if it gets the wrong idea programmed into it, that can really mess up your life. This happens quite a lot, actually. So everyone has beliefs that are no longer working in their best interest. So we're going to teach you how to find and change yours. So to make yourself resilient to stress, we're interested in the beliefs that make up your worldview. So where do you suspect most of your reality determining beliefs are stored? Are they in the conscious mind or in the unconscious part of your mind? Well, since your conscious mind makes up about 3 to 5% of your total mind, most of the beliefs that you've formed over your lifetime hang out in the unconscious part. So, also, most of the major beliefs in your worldview were in place by the time you're 7 years old. So, this brings up the question of how do you become aware of what beliefs are operating in your life if you're storing them in your unconscious? How do we shed a light on them? It may seem daunting, but there is a way, and so we're going to show you how. So now we can put all these ideas about the worldviews, beliefs, the mind together to solve this problem of stress. So, in a nutshell, to make yourself resilient to stress, you need a dependable, reliable way to go into the unconscious mind, since that's where most of your worldview determining beliefs live. And you need to find those beliefs that are making your daily life seem stressful to you. You need to bring those beliefs into the light of consciousness, get them aligned with higher truth, and then put the um, newly aligned belief back into your unconscious mind so that they can start helping to shape a new, less stressful interpretation of your experiences for yourself. So that's what I saw as the answer to stress. It seems pretty straightforward, right? Well, the devil's in the details. So the concept seems pretty straightforward, but how do you put it into practice? How do you get into the unconscious mind? And once there, how do you find the beliefs that are creating the stressful interpretation? There could be thousands of them. And once found, how do you get the belief to change in the direction that you want them to? Well, believe it or not, I found good answers to all of these questions. Again, looking for simplifying principles, I saw that feelings are the key. So, have you ever noticed that every experience that makes it into your conscious mind generates a feeling? So everything you see, hear, taste, touch, and smell, along with every thought you think, generates a feeling in you. It's as if all of your life gets translated into this internal experience of feelings, and they are constantly flowing like a river. So if you can learn to have a healthy, appropriate relationship with your feelings, you can access all the information your life is feeding you. So we're going to show you how. So here's the best way that I've come up with to understand how your mind translates thoughts and sensory inputs into feelings. So when I take my glasses to the optometrist, she can put them into a machine that tells her what their prescription is. Now, my understanding is that the machine shines a known light through the lens, measures how the lens bends the light, and then uses standard equations of refraction to calculate what lens might have bent the light that way. So in this model, whatever comes into your mind in the form of thoughts, and then what you see, hear, taste, touch, smell, what you receive in the way of intuitive insights, and also any information that comes up to your mind from your body, all that information passes through your worldview, what in psychology is often referred to as your structure of interpretation. And the result is how you feel about it. Well, with practice, you can become aware of the information coming into your mind, like what your best friend just said to you. And then you can watch how you feel about it. And then, like the optometrist machine, you can work toward the middle and uncover the beliefs that are connected to that feeling. So what you know is naturally you're going to like some feelings and not like other feelings. And it's also human nature to want to get out of those uncomfortable feelings. But changing or avoiding the feeling itself does nothing to change what created that feeling in the first place, namely whatever you're experiencing and however you're interpreting those experiences. And besides, you would already be too late, because if your interpretation of an experience leads to a feeling threatened, overwhelmed, or spread too thin, your body's going to respond with that stress reflex within milliseconds, often before your conscious mind even registers the feeling. So, if the problem lies in the input, chances are you're being abused, disrespected, or just caught in an unfortunate natural circumstances. We know what that's like. If there is anything you can change on this side of the lens, well, by all means do so, if it's your fight. But I see so many people putting their life energy into trying to change things that are not theirs to control, like someone else, for example. And they just become fatigued, discouraged, and depressed. So let's take a moment and think about what in your life you control. So write the answers to the following questions in your dialog box. Do you control other people? I hope you can see that by now. Do you control how you feel? Do you control what you think? Do you control what you believe? So let's look at this. So obviously we don't control other people, even if they're our children or our spouses or coworkers, etc. Excuse me. And just trying to do that is going to cause you frustration. Do you control how you feel? Well, I believe we don't, because the feeling just shows up and it's a result of the whatever you're sensing passing through your structure of interpretation. So do you control what you think? Well, that's kind of a trick question, because the answer is yes and no. So obviously you can choose some thoughts, because you can choose to think about what you want for dinner or where do you want to go on vacation. But if you're not choosing your thoughts right then your mind just starts thinking. We call these automatic thoughts. And it's actually quite a difficult exercise in some meditation techniques to still and calm those automatic thoughts in your mind. What about your beliefs? Do you control your beliefs? Well, we certainly hope so, because the basis of this whole approach to stress is the idea that you, with the right practices, can control and choose your beliefs. So it feels like it's time to summarize again. So to put all this reasoning in one place, so you can't stay stressed and stay healthy at the same time. Stress happens when the demands of your life exceed your ability to adapt and compensate. Potential stressors are an inevitable part of daily life. If you can keep the sum total of your stressors below your personal threshold, you won't get stressed. And whether or not an experience becomes a stressor for you mostly depends on how you look at it. And how you look at something is determined by your worldview. And your worldview is the sum total of all of your beliefs. And to make yourself resilient to life's potential stressors, you need to be able to change your beliefs in specific ways. So beliefs can be in the conscious or unconscious mind, but either way, they're contributing to your worldview, and they determine how you experience reality. So feelings are the key to unlocking the unconscious mind. So I'd like to take a moment here, another little aside, to put your mind at ease, because many people are intimidated by the idea of having to deal with their unconscious mind. And we tend to fear the unknown, And your unconscious mind is unknown by definition. But research has really abundantly clear that your unconscious mind is incredibly powerful and influential in your life. So if you ever want to gain conscious control over your powers of manifesting and creating, in other words, if you want to have the life of your dreams, then you're going to have to learn how to remove limiting beliefs from both sides of your mind and replace them with higher truths. And to do that, your feelings are the key. So, feelings are the result of thoughts, intuitions, and sensory input passing through your beliefs. Feelings are never the problem. You never have to say to yourself, oh, I shouldn't be feeling that way. The truth of your moment is that you are feeling that way. So, why not explore what's really going on? The feeling can be looked upon as a messenger, like the mail carrier. It's not the message. And this is an important confusion we see all the time. The feeling itself is innocent. It's not the mail carrier's fault what's in your mail. Now, how you're feeling is part of your truth in this moment, which is something you do not need to use your ego mind to try and change, as you'll soon see. So, I can't stress this point enough because trying to make their feelings be different by working directly on the feeling itself is the most common block to people's healing that I see. So, when you change your beliefs, your feelings will just naturally change. So, you don't have to worry about being stuck feeling these same painful feelings over and over again. So, let the feeling deliver its message. So, you can learn to see the input, see the resulting feeling, and work toward the middle to uncover the belief that interpreted the input that way. So you want to exert your efforts where they will do some good. So being clear about what you control, what you can influence, and what you just have to accept really helps you decide what you need to do in order to change the level of stress in your life. So as far as changing the world, you need to decide what causes are your fight and how you want to spend your life energy. As far as changing your lenses, that's an inside job. And that is what we're going to talk about next. So here's where we get into talking about those 6 simple steps that I promised you. So they sit on a foundation formed by rule number 1. These 6 simple steps are what I call the 3 A's, and we run through them twice. So let me explain. So since feelings are the key to unlocking the unconscious mind, and since most of our worldview determining beliefs are in the unconscious mind, learning how to be healthy with your feelings, which actually means learning how to just let your feelings be and let them deliver their message, is a most important skill for making yourself resilient and impervious to stress. So, rule number 1 says that all feelings are valid. So, this rule is true because feelings are just innocent messengers. To be healthy with your feelings, rule number 1 must never be broken. Then, when you work through the 3 A's, the feeling is able to deliver its message. So, awareness is the first of the 6 simple steps, becoming aware of the feeling, both the physical and emotional sides of it. The body sweep exercise that you can access for free through the 7 Tools website is an excellent practice for listening to the body. And so are the Yoga Nidra exercises available there. So there are many layers to your feelings, and with practice, you can peel down through them all. So the second step is acknowledge. So you accept the feeling just as it is. You acknowledge it as it is, just as it's there. So view it with kindness and suspend any judgment toward it or yourself for having that feeling. And then the third of the 3 A's is ask. You just ask the feeling to take you to its roots. When did your body first experience that feeling? Every feeling, both emotional and physical, is actually represented by a specific physical chemical change in your body, and your body memory knows when you first experienced it. So this generally uncovers the belief. So then steps 4 through 6 align the uncovered belief with the higher truth. So once the belief is uncovered, you run it through the 3 A's. So remember, what you believe is part of your truth in that moment. Just leave it alone. So it might be abundantly clear once you see it that the belief is not true. But if you jump in and try to force it to change, you will get stuck. So step 4 is to be fully aware of as you've just become aware of the belief because the feeling led you to it. So step 5, again, is just acknowledge the belief just as it is. So even if the belief is obviously not true, your truth is that you've been holding that belief as if it were true. So also, again, view the belief and yourself holding that belief and whatever experience you went through that led to the formation of that belief. Just hold all of that with as much kindness and absence of judgment as you're able. And then the 6th step is to ask the belief a question that encourages it to align to it with higher truth. So we want you to find a question that works for you. So some that we've heard our patients and clients ask are things like, well, how does that belief compare with higher truth? Or what would my heart say about that belief? Or how does that belief look through spirit eyes? Or what would God say about that belief? So try to find a question that fits comfortably in your worldview too. So most of the time, asking this kind of question is enough to get the belief to shift. And if not, there are some other things you can do to get it to change. So that's the 6 steps to making yourself resilient to stress. You run your feelings through the 3 A's in order to uncover the belief, and then you run your beliefs through the 3 A's in order to align them with higher truth. So as you go through your days and weeks, you'll have a wide variety of feelings that will allow you to you'll have a wide variety of feelings that will allow you to inventory all those pertinent beliefs that make your life seem stressful. The relevant beliefs that need to change will just naturally present themselves because of the feelings that you're having. So I can need a sip of water here. And as an added benefit, you get so much more from this practice than just building your resilience. Because as your beliefs start to align themselves with higher truth, your perception of your life and of yourself will start to change. You'll become more and more who you really are. And who you really are in your heart of hearts is a kind, wise, compassionate person. And the more you just are that kind, wise person, the less likely you are to feel threatened, overwhelmed, or spread too thin. So that is the method in a nutshell. When you are in that mindset of identifying yourself as that kind, wise observer of yourself as you're going through your day, you pretty much don't generate the feelings that trigger the fight or flight reflex in your body. So in a moment, we're going to look at some examples of people putting that process into practice. So making yourself resilient to stress needs to be a part of your total wellness program. If you stay stressed, everything else you do to stay healthy will be less effective. So you owe this practice to yourself. And healing is always possible. You just have to look for it in the right places. There is hope. You don't have to live stressed out. We've seen these concepts work over and over. This may seem like a lot of information, and it is in a way. But remember, if the answer to stress were simple, we'd all do it and stop dying from these stress-related diseases. So this approach does get easier once you've practiced it a bit. So here's some examples of people who have put these uh, practices to use. So I saw a young woman who's about 35 who'd been having this stabbing pain between her shoulder blades for the past 15 years. Over that time, she estimates she'd seen over 40 different practitioners, chiropractors, orthopedic surgeons, neurologists, physical therapists, acupuncturists, massage therapists, on, all with no resolution of her pain. So I asked her if she would be willing to try craniosacral therapy, and she said yes. So we started to work, and I asked her to put her awareness into her body and see what caught her attention. The pain did. She said it was like a knife stabbing in her back. And then she paused for a moment and added, "It's like a sword in the stone." Now, her comment really piqued my interest for 2 reasons. First, I'd never had a patient use that reference or that phrase to describe a stabbing pain before. And second, I just happened to be reading Once and Future King, which is a King Arthur story, to my kids at the time. So, of course, my next question was, well, what part of you can step up and pull out that sword? And you could see that she was looking around inside for a moment. And then she said, "Oh, my 13-year-old can. Well, what happened when you were 13?" She paused again, and then a tear came out of the corner of one eye, and she said, "Well, that was when my mom died." She paused again and then said, "Oh, I remember one evening after she died, I was so distraught and sad that I made a vow to myself that if I were ever happy again, that would be betraying my mom's death." So now I asked, "Does that relate to this pain?" And she said, "Well, this pain is fulfilling my vow. It is keeping me from being happy." So I asked if she thought that that would be what her mother would want for her. And she said, "No, she would want me to be happy." So I asked if she would be willing to talk with that 13-year-old inside and reconsider that vow. She said yes. And after a few moments, when she was ready, her 13-year-old stepped up to the sword, pulled it out, and her pain was gone and has actually stayed gone to this day. Again, I saw another woman who was what she called a corporate headhunter. I take people and plug them into slots, she said. So she felt very unfulfilled, like she wasn't doing good service in the world. She thought she was just making life easier for corporations, many of which she blamed as the cause of some of the world's problems. So she was always tired and hated Mondays. The trouble was, though, she was really good at what she did. So I've had a couple of pretty bad jobs in my life, and I pointed out to her that to your soul, there is no such thing as just a job. So how you spend your working hours are very important to you on a deep level. So we explored this idea together, and she was able to see that by helping people find just the right job for them, she'd actually just performed an amazing service and done that person a huge favor in their life. So it's not about benefiting the corporation, it's about benefiting the people. She said that she'd never seen it that way before, but she could see it now. And after that, she focused more on the person she was plugging into the slot and less on the corporation that was paying her to fill its slot. And her job stopped being a stress and started being a joy to her. So she really liked her values. She liked wanting to help people and wanting to make the world a better place. And by helping people just find the right job for them, she was also helping the corporation. But that was just as a consequence of her work. And since the corporations were paying her, it was natural for her to see things from the corporation's perspective, which put her perception in conflict with her values. So this conflict was causing her stress and discomfort. But by simply changing her focus from the corporation to the people, that conflict in her values was resolved. So several years ago, a very talented custom furniture and cabinet maker took my Taming the Bear class. So most of his clientele were very well-to-do people with luxury homes. And when he would get behind on his orders and have to call a client to reschedule an installation or delivery, they would always get exasperated and berate him in various ways. And this was actually the most stressful part of his work. Well, during the class, as he worked with the feelings that came up for him whenever he went through that kind of an experience, he found a number of beliefs, and most of them resulting in low self-esteem. And he saw this belief that he didn't deserve to be treated with respect. Well, he did a great job correcting those beliefs and aligning them with higher truth. And he said that shortly after that, he got behind, had to call a client to reschedule, and it just happened to be one that had given him a hard time on an earlier job. And this time, the man was very understanding and accommodating, and they calmly worked out another time for the delivery. And most of his clients have continued to respond to him in this new way. So these are just a few examples of people who have used this method of rule number one on the three A's and have been able to change their beliefs, change their perceptions, and have resulting life transformations. So take a moment now and remember how you feel when you're overwhelmed, exhausted, frustrated, trapped, and just totally stressed out. So what do you notice in your body when you feel that way? So now you know you don't have to live like that anymore. And if situations are really out of your control and these feelings do come up, you'll be able to get through them and back to your centered place much more quickly. Before I practiced the 7 tools, if I got frustrated or angry, it would take me days to get over it, often rehashing the experience in my mind over and over all day long. I used to just live frustrated with a very short fuse. Now, when those old feelings come up, which they do much less often, I see them, feel them, follow them to their roots, and get back to my equilibrium often in a matter of minutes. So when you don't resist, things rarely persist. So now you know the strategy and the 6 steps to make yourself resilient to stress. The next question is, how do I put these ideas into practice quickly? Because the longer you stay stressed, the more likely it will make you sick. Well, as way I see it, you have 2 choices. So choice 1, so we have clearly outlined in this webinar a straightforward process to make yourself impervious to stress that you could do on your own. So we have outlined the entire process. So there are obviously subtleties that we've worked out over the years that we didn't have time to talk about here, ways that people get blocked or detoured. And for example, most of us have spent so many years figuring out how to manage our feelings, we often don't even recognize we're doing it. And this happened to me because after I've been practicing listening to my feelings for a few years, I found that I had this thick layer of filter in my neck, and whole swaths of feelings never even made it to my conscious mind. So I could repress feelings even before I knew I was having them. It took me years of work to see how I was doing this and then get it to change. So you could work through all the ways you can do this process incorrectly too, but that would probably take you years like it did me. But we don't want you to keep suffering that long. We want you to benefit from our experience. So choice 2 is you can actually take us with you on your healing journey. You have just heard some very valuable information, but as you can imagine, we've only touched the tip of the iceberg. You can get the benefit of our years of practice with thousands of people. There are so many roadblocks and detours that we can help you get around. We can take this generic information and personalize it for you and to you. You could receive our guidance, support, and the feedback of not only Grace and myself, but that of a community of people who are also working to make themselves impervious to stress. With this was going to this will greatly accelerate your progress. So we will know if you are off the beaten path, going down a detour, need to clarify some issues, or practice developing more skills. So to help you, we're offering that same class that Grace and I have been teaching in person in our respective practices for years as a 12-week online class. So in this class, you will not only learn, but practice and embody all the skills we just talked about that you need in order to make yourself resilient to stress. With practice, this way of listening to your feelings, getting their message, and aligning limiting beliefs with higher truth starts to become natural to you, automatic, like your new default setting. So this is what you get with the class. There's 12 modules, one per week, and each module contains a core lesson, and these are 30 to 45-minute videos that recorded by Grace and myself that present the fundamental ideas for each week. And in these lessons, we go over each of the 7 tools and everything you need to know in order to put them into practice in your own life and make yourself impervious to stressors. You also get an experiential video that it's like a 7 to 12-minute video giving you an experiential exercise to practice that will help you really experience and embody the ideas presented in the core lessons. You get handouts and written homework. So each week you'll also be able to access a PDF of homework suggestions, such as additional awareness exercises or how to be healthy with different kinds of feelings, etc. There's also additional materials to explore, deeper discussions of topics, and whatever is most helpful for that week's material. And then there's also once a week a live call with Grace and myself, where with the core participants in the class, where they can learn how to apply these 7 tools to their real life issues, get their questions answered, and have deeper discussions of the ideas presented. So the regular participants in the class can then listen to these recorded calls after it has happened. You also get access to our private online group where you can share your experiences using these ideas and skills from the class in your life. things that worked or didn't work for you, hear how others are using the ideas in the class, ask questions, start discussions, and get more advice from us. Then you also get lifetime access to the class so that you can return to the course for assistance at any point in your life journey. So you can do this because when you take Taming the Bear, taking the bite out of stress, you'll transform your relationship with stress. You will also know how stress reflex affects your body. And you're going to be better and better able to recognize when you're reaching your limits. You're going to learn how to be healthy with your feelings. You're going to learn how to work with your pure, raw, naked personal truth so that you can be free from whatever ails you. And you can find and change limiting beliefs and really live true to who you are in your heart of hearts. And then you can have this set of skills that you can use for the rest of your life to help yourself grow and change. So here's a summary of the topics that are covered by each module. So understanding stress, how stress affects your body can make you sick. Here you'll get a clear understanding of the changes that take place in your body when the stress reflex gets triggered and why stress can do so many bad things to you. Then you're going to get a cure for stress. Here we introduce the 7 tools of healing. And these
All right. Well, it seems like maybe Dad lost internet again. The ironic thing is that he went to his office because he has better internet quality there than at home usually. However, well, I'm back, Danielle. However, I'm not the one with the slide presentation. So I think he maybe is.
Dad lost internet again. The ironic thing is that he went to his office because he has
I'm
better
listening to
internet quality
myself
there than at home usually.
20 seconds behind because I've got it going
However,
twice. Hang on. This is
I'm back. Danielle.
annoying. Okay, there we go. Now I'm only hearing myself in one time. Anyway, so I think maybe what we'll do is we'll record it again and send it out as replay for you because it looks like the modem at work is having a little bit of issues for Dad. He says it's not, that it's trying to reconnect. So maybe he'll be able to pop in on his phone to finish for us. But yeah, but we maybe are just kind of hitting an impasse. If anybody has any questions about anything that they've heard today, we were just about to offer you a discount on Taming the Bear. If you are interested in taking that class, it's we are offering you to use the code RESILIENT at checkout for third off. So it ends up being about $1,200 for the core participant class and I think $503 or something for the regular participant class, so or the self-study class. I'm just going to see if Dad's doing anything. I really appreciate you all bearing with us today. We've kind of switched to a new platform, hoping that things would work better for us because we had some issues last time, and that doesn't seem to be the case. So yeah, I appreciate you all being here with us. Oh, where do you find it? You can find it. Thank you, Donna. That's a great question. If you go to www.the7tools.com and then / Taming the Bear, it'll take you straight to the sales page where there's more information about the class. Here, I'll put it in the chat too. And then you'll want to use code RESILIENT. And because you were on the call today, you also normally, if you by the end of the webinar, you get some extra bonuses. But because you've been on the call, we will offer you those bonuses, which are for core participants. It's an hour of live coaching with me, 7 yoga nidra meditations that are each designed to help you integrate the 7 tools into your practice. And yes, so the live weekly call is going to be on Thursday at 9 Pacific and noon Eastern time and runs for an hour and a half. And the live calls are actually really powerful. A lot of people kind of are feeling a little bit nervous about them beforehand because it's a live group of people and you don't know each other before you get started. But what we found is that they're actually really helpful because not only are you getting to practice the 7 tools in relation to your own work and your own life, because you get to bring your own material into the calls, but you're also getting to watch other people learn how to do the process for themselves. And while our lives are a little bit different on the outside often, they're much more similar on the inside. So watching other people's process is really helpful for learning how to implement them in your own life. So we've gotten a lot of really good feedback about, oh, you're welcome, Danielle, about the live calls and the changes that the live calls have facilitated in people's lives. I think they both create accountability for actually doing the work and listening. Ooh, sorry, I'm tipping my computer. Doing the work every week with the course, but they also create an environment and a community in which to heal. So it's pretty powerful work. People really change a lot through the course. It's one of my favorite things to do is teach this class because I just get to watch people step into themselves in really beautiful ways. So we also offer payment plans if paying all at once is a bit much for the budget. There's a once a month payment plan offered on the website. But if you need something else to make it work in your life, we're really happy to be flexible because we do want people to have these tools. Yeah, Donna, thanks for stopping in. It was nice to have you here. Thanks for sticking it out with all of our tech issues today. So, yeah, does anybody else have any questions about anything? Let me see. Kind of see what else Dad was going to touch on. I'm normally the one in the background doing all of the background stuff and not the presentations. Let me just pop it open for a second and see if there's anything else that feels like we should share it with you before we go. Let's see. It's opening, it's just a big file. All right. Yeah, okay, let's see. Oh, so he was talking about what the summary of the topics are here. Hang on 1 second, let me open this up maybe and I can, okay, so he was talking about, we'll talk about understanding stress, we'll talk about what the cure for stress is, in other words, we'll talk about the 7 tools of healing. We'll go do an in-depth exploration of each of the 7 tools. And then we talk about some of the supporting ideas around sorry, Dad was texting that he's having trouble getting into the Zoom. So I think we'll just proceed without him for now. Some supporting ideas that can help you understand how and why these tools work. So we talk about the law of manifestation, and we'll talk more in depth about rule number 1 in the 3 A's, which is what Dad went over just a second ago. Yeah, and then we'll talk about how to continue to use the tools even after the class is over, because we know that it's important to have these tools be things that you can carry on into your life even once the class is over. It's not something we want you to have the benefit of for 12 weeks. We want you to have the benefit of it forever. So we can help you sort that out. And so you can take the class in 2 different ways. You can either take it as what we call a core participant. And that means that you get access to the whole pre-recorded content, as well as the community forum. And then you get to be on the live calls. So you get, it's basically 18 hours of live coaching with both my dad and I. So it's pretty impactful coaching. Or you can sign up as what we call a regular participant, and that's basically a self-study class. So you receive all of the pre-recorded content and access to the community forum. And like I mentioned before, as a free bonus for signing up after having been on this webinar, we're giving you the set of 7 Yoga Nidra meditations. And I don't know if you're all familiar with Yoga Nidra. It's a really easy to do guided meditation practice that facilitates deep relaxation and healing. I'm a trained advanced facilitator through the Amrit method for I Am Yoga Nidra. And the recordings lead you through a series of experiential exercises, and they're each one is designed to help you integrate a particular tool. So they're really powerful in conjunction with the class. And they're also, Yoga Nidra just in general is really good for helping with stress, and to let go of old beliefs and to embrace new ones. So that the 2 together, it's a really, really powerful practice. Plus you get an hour of personal coaching with me. So if there's things that you don't feel comfortable bringing into the live call, or if there are things that you want a little bit more in-depth help with, that hour is a really great way to do that. Yeah. And then if you sign up as a regular participant, we'll give you the Yoga Nidra still, but not the personalized coaching. Yeah. And we do offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you get into it and you're like, oh, this isn't actually for me, we really want you to be satisfied with the class. We really believe in what we're teaching. And so we do offer that 30-day money-back guarantee to help you feel comfortable making the purchase. So I touched on this before, but basically if you sign up after having been on this webinar, the total value of what you're getting between the 12-week class, the Yoga Nidras, and the personal coaching is worth $2,250. But it'll be yours today for $1,206. So that's a third off. It's a funny number because, the whole third off ends up being 33%, which makes numbers funny. Anyway, and then if you sign up as a regular participant, it's a 12-week class, which is normally $750, and you'll get the Yoga Nidras, which are $100 on the website, and then the 33% off. So it's an $850 value for $503. All right. Yeah. And let's see. So then we normally will get into the question and answer period. So if anybody else has any questions that they want to pop into the chat box, you can do that. Otherwise, I'll just can touch on some of our frequently asked questions. Yeah. So One question people ask sometimes is like if they're going to sign up for the class and they have to miss a class, what does that mean? And we do record the classes, so you're able to. Oh, great question, Danielle. January 7th. Yeah, January 7th. Oops, I was clicking into the wrong things. Too many things open. So the pre-recorded material will be released on the first Saturday in January, and each week the new module will be released on Saturday early morning, so that you have all weekend and then until Thursday to watch the pre-recorded material. And then on Thursdays we'll meet for the live call. So the first call is on the 7th, and then but the material is first released, I think, as a second or something. I'm not looking at a calendar. So I was saying, if you do need to miss a call for whatever reason, life happens, you go on vacation, it's a long time, we record the call so you can go back and listen to the call. But that also means that you can go back even years later and re-listen to the calls. We've had students that when they've kind of hit a hard time in their life, or they're feeling like they're struggling with their practice of the 7 tools, they've gone back and listened to the class that they took even years prior, which allows it to stay more present in day-to-day life. So it's a great resource to be able to go back to the pre-recorded videos, but also to the class calls and listen. And most people are able to get through the whole course in about like somewhere between 2.5 and 3 hours a week. The only thing that's set in stone time-wise is that live call on Thursdays. So you need to be available for that slot if you're going to sign up as a core participant. And again, that's Thursdays from 9 to 10:30 Pacific time, or noon to 1:30 Eastern time. But the rest of it, it's in pretty manageable chunks. People watch a little bit here, a little bit there. The longest core lesson video is about 45 minutes, but you can start and stop it, so you can come back to it if you need to take a break and do it in smaller chunks than that. And then there's an experiential video that's usually between 12 and 7 minutes, I believe. So, or sorry, I got those backwards, 7 and 12 minutes. And then the homework tends to be homework that you're doing. The first class, there's homework that's doing an art project, but the rest of the homework tends to be more reflective. So it's something that you are doing throughout the week as you're living your life. You're kind of paying attention to particular things. Yeah. And I think one of the things that people find the most helpful about the class is the core participant calls, because we're really creating a really supportive community in which to change. And I think, I was like, I'm not the only alone in this, but one of my favorite things to say is that healing happens in community, because our wounds often happen in relationships. And so when we're in supportive healing communities, we tend to be able to access things in ourselves that and healing in ourselves that we aren't necessarily able to access on our own. So it's the group aspect is actually really powerful. Yeah, and it is this kind of semi-private environment, so there are the group of people on the calls, and they are recorded. So you do need to be kind of conscientious about what you bring. Some people feel like there are things that are private that they want to talk about in abstract ways, or they bring in something that feels a little bit less personal. But the reality is that our work is all our work. And so even when we're bringing in something that feels more surface or benign, the reality is that the patterns that are happening underneath the surface are all the same patterns. And so we can access it through a million different ways. So you can kind of find the content door that feels comfortable for you and your system, while still accessing the same profound healing. We don't have to practice on our deepest wounds in order to get the benefit of it. So, and you can choose what name you use in the class. If you want to go by an alias, you're welcome to do that for your own privacy. We respect you finding the balance of what works for you. Yeah. Okay. So I hope that some of you will feel like you want to join us for this. And like I said, it starts January 7th. Because you registered for this webinar, we will honor the bonuses, because I know we've had some issues today, and I really appreciate you sticking out with us through all of the loss of internets and complicated back tech issues. So yeah, Doug, thanks for coming. I'm really glad that you and Stella were able to be here with us. And yeah, we appreciate you listening to the information, and it's really an honor to get to share it with anybody who will listen ever. We really want these tools out into the world because we just see over and over and over again the impact that they make on people's lives. So we're always excited to share it. Okay, if you have any other questions that come up, feel free to email us. We will email you back. You will be getting a few emails about Taming the Bear in the coming weeks. So maybe some of your questions will be answered there as well. And hopefully we'll see some of you there. Yeah, hopefully we'll see some of you there on Taming the Bear.